Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is me, Kimberly B, with another episode of Talk Therapy Live. Come on in, come on in. Please share, like, and comment and subscribe. Come on in, tell a family member, tell a friend that it is time for Talk Therapy today. I want you all to know that you are listening to a Gold Chip communication station today. And you can actually listen live if you're driving in your car or you're in the office and you just want to share. You can go to www.1580topraise.com and click on Listen Live. I would love for you all to join in on this conversation. You can go to my Facebook Live page, Talk Therapy Live, and just join in on this wonderful conversation. Good morning to my sis Brittany Bloom Bozeman and also my good friend Mary Stevenson. Good morning, good morning, good morning. We are talking about the cost of fear today. The cost of fear. So you don't want to miss this hot topic, and you don't want your loved ones to miss it either. Wake them up, get them out of their bed, and tell them, listen, you need to hear this. This is a subject that we all face this fear, right? But before I get started today, I want to give a shout out to my baby boy, my youngest male factor, William V.C. Bozeman. Today is his birthday. Happy birthday, son. Happy birthday. Yes, so y'all can also give a shout out to William also today. So I am Kimberly B., the owner of Healthy Emotes Counseling Services. If you want to get in touch with me, my number is 614-669-5115. 614-669-5115. And just to put it out there, I will eventually be doing hypnotherapy for weight loss, yes, and smoking cessations. All right. So if you know someone who needs to lose weight and they've tried everything, or they've tried to stop smoking and it has not worked, and this will begin in September. All right. So get the word out there. Get it out there. All right. So I miss my husband. I'm having a little bit of withdrawal symptoms and anxiety because the Honorable Bishop Marvin C. Bozeman is not with me today. He had another itinerary today, so I'll give him my blessing, I guess. But yes, I'm demonstrating some codependency here. I am. I miss you, Marvin. All right, y'all help me out today. All right, so the cost of fear. So June is National Post-Traumatic Syndrome Disorder Month. So it's awareness for PTSD. Normally, when we think about PTSD, we always think about our veterans, right? I mean, no doubt at all that they have suffered some because of what they have been exposed to. All right. So fear is definitely one of the effects of PTSD, right? We know that. But fear is not totally a negative thing. Fear can be a good thing because it heightens our awareness of danger. It heightens our awareness of a situation that could be very detrimental to us. So fear overall is not bad. It's just prolonged fear or unnecessary fear. So we know the acronym to fear. Does anyone know the acronym? You all tell me the acronym to fear. I know you all know this. Just put it in there in the comment section. What is the acronym to fear? No one? Okay. False. F is for false. E is evidence. A is appearing. There you go. Yes, false enemies. Someone says false enemies appearing real. Okay, so we can look at it that way. But is false evidence appearing real? False evidence appearing real. So when we deal with fear, it's always in the head. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, that the mind is the battleground. So there are thoughts projected in our heads that there is something to really fear when really there's nothing to fear. Really, so let's say, for instance, you have to give a speech in front of a class. You are shaking in your boots, right? But what's going on here? You have all these thoughts in your mind that this speech is not going to go over well. I'm not going to pronounce every word, and all the eyeballs are going to be on me, and I can't handle it. All of these are is false evidence. How do you know? Because you haven't even gotten up there yet. You know your stuff. You studied for it, right? Or else you wouldn't be getting up there. I would hope not. So you trust in your skill set, in your knowledge, but it's false evidence appearing real. Good morning to my beautiful mother, Idra Trout. So what we must do is really begin to think about our thoughts, and we'll get into all of that. But before we do, I want to talk a little bit about PTSD, because although we haven't really been in the war, or in the National Guards, or in the Air Force, I'm telling you, we have all been through some traumatic times. 2020 and coming through all of that, and every time you turn on the news, there's shootings going on. All of that stuff has caused some of us to really suffer some PTSD. So I want to give you some of the criteria. Tony Bozeman says, hello, Kimberly, glad to be a part of your show. And I am super excited that you are here. Please feel free to chime in. And then, yes, Marvin Forte says, being Black can cause PTSD. What are you all's thoughts about that? I do want to hear from you all, and I will address that as I go on. So PTSD. So some of the criteria: directly experiencing a traumatic event. Directly means that it actually happened to you. Everyone's trauma can be different. So we can't look at someone and say, oh, that wasn't traumatic. I don't know why they're feeling that way. Remember that your level of resiliency is different from the next person's. So you can't say what is trauma to someone else and what is not, because after all, we don't know what everyone else has been exposed to. Okay, so number one is being directly experiencing a traumatic event. Okay, number two is you witness a traumatic event. Say like you're riding on a bus to work, and someone gets on, say like the incident that happened where the guy stabbed the bus driver. Can you imagine all the other customers that's riding the bus? It wasn't just trauma for the bus driver. It was trauma because we witnessed this event. This causes trauma in the person who is witnessing. So number one is directly being affected. Number two is witnessing a traumatic event. Number three is learning that the trauma event happened to a close one, a family member or a friend. So if someone is on the bus and they witness it, and then they come home and they share this story with their family, and the family is now traumatized. Does that make sense? So it's learning about the traumatic event. And then the fourth one is experiencing repeated or extreme exposure to it. Like a police officer or a firefighter, can you imagine, or social workers, where they have to go into homes and they deal with abuse, children who have been abused day in and day out. Um, Being a therapist and hearing about people's trauma day in and day out, firefighters pulling bodies out of buildings day in and day out. This is repeated exposure. So this is post-traumatic, um, exposure. Okay, over and over again. And right now we're just talking about PTSD. So some of the symptoms of PTSD is having recurrent and intrusive memories. Like you just cannot get this out of your head. This experience, I can't stop seeing it. I can't stop feeling it, because now we're having anxiety, right? We can't stop seeing it in our heads. It's like we can't turn that switch off, lay down at night, and first thing that comes up is that thought, right? So having recurrent involuntary intrusive memories, or having recurrent dreams. I call them nightmares, right? Because who wants to dream about a traumatic event? Have any of you ever been there before? I would really like to hear from you all. If you all have been there, experienced some PTSD, and what you have done to overcome it. Okay? Having intrusive dreams, intrusive thoughts, and then flashbacks. You can be on a vacation with your family, but then here comes this flashback of what happened. It's just like, my heart goes out to veterans, especially around the 4th of July. I don't really know what they do in that scenario when you have the fireworks going off to them. It sounds like a round being shot off, and a lot of them cannot handle that. Right? I think there's really nothing we can do. It's not that we're being insensitive, but my heart goes out to veterans who suffer from PTSD. I think about them and pray for them every 4th of July when the fireworks go off, right? That's a prayer to be prayed. So y'all chime in. If you ever had suffered, or if you feel like you're suffering from PTSD, what are your symptoms? What are you doing to overcome the symptoms? Now, sometimes what may happen is avoidance. So we want to avoid, for instance, my father, of course, passed away, and he passed away at the Kohlbacker house back in 2004. For a long time, I would have nothing to do with that area. I wouldn't go around that area. When I found out that someone else was there, I was not going to visit that area. So it's called avoidance. You try to stay away from that area. When I had a traumatic car incident years ago and totaled my car, I refuse to avoid it because I know what all that is, right? If you stay away from it, PTSD will have a hold on you. Remember, I always say to never listen to the voice of depression or of your diagnosis, right? Because once you listen to that voice, you begin to obey that voice. And we know that these diagnoses is not our friend. It's really an enemy. So if PTSD tells you to avoid the area, don't go around that area, that's going to make you safe. Really, it's keeping you stuck. It's keeping you stuck. So, when I had PTSD from the car accident, I heard a voice saying, don't take that route. Don't go, because it's going to remind you of the incident. but I knew better. So I challenged myself to not avoid the area. Yes, I did feel some kind of way the first couple of times riding through there. But how you going to overcome if you don't face it? How will you overcome? Why be defeated that way? Right? So Brittany Bozeman says, I was going to say having PTSD from going to certain hospitals because certain loved ones have died there. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's when we have, avoidant behaviors. But we must challenge ourselves so that we can function at optimal performance, not allowing anything to impede who we are, right? So the avoidance, sometimes we'll avoid people because maybe certain people remind us of someone else. Sounds a little strange, but we call ourselves keeping ourselves safe. Sometimes there's death in family, so you stay away from the one that was close to them because every time you see them, they remind you of your deceased loved one. We stay away from places. We stay away from conversations like, nope, we're not going there today. I cannot handle that. Now, I'm not saying to just to just immerse yourself right away, because sometimes it takes time. But what I am saying to you is do not avoid altogether. We have to take baby steps. Take baby steps, right? Because we're overcoming. We haven't we haven't became a victim to, so you have to be careful how you see yourself. Am I a victim or am I a victor? And it's up to you which one you decide to choose, because however you choose, you're going to begin moving that way. You're going to begin behaving that way. So yes, I have a fear. I have avoidant behavior. I know that about myself. So therefore, I must do something to counteract that, because I don't want that connected to me. So slowly, and this is what we call prolonged exposure, expose yourself to it. All right. Another thing that happens with PTSD is the inability to remember the important details, and that happens quite often. And I think we have part of the shock syndrome too, where we kind of black out. We really do not remember, what happened, or we have exaggerated negative beliefs. Like, I will never love anyone else again, or I cannot trust men because this man or that man did ABC to me, or I will never get married again because my marriage was abusive. You know what I mean? That's PTSD and avoidance in a very extreme way. All right. Anybody else want to chime in at all? We're talking about avoidance, the inability to remember specific details, exaggerated negative beliefs, right? Or we have persistent negative emotions. You have the guilt, you have the shame, you have the anger, all of that connected to the experience. Initially it's fine, but when you find yourself being stuck, if it's a year later or even 6 months later and you're still feeling that way, please, ladies and gentlemen, reach out for help. Can I hear somebody say reach out for help? Can you shout that back to me? reach out for help. You cannot and should not have that much pride where you know that you are not the same person. You know something has happened to you. You know that you have changed. You know that you are not just walking in fear, but you're living in fear. You go to sleep in fear. You wake up in fear. You function in fear all day long. This should not be your story. That's right, Mom Sissy. Reach out for help. Help yourself to live a better life so that you can live the life that you want to live. Yeah, I was a victim of marital abuse in my ex relationship. Yes, I was, but I didn't want to generalize all men because I knew all men weren't like that. I knew that because of my daddy. I saw what a loving, intimate, affectionate relationship. I saw how that can be from my parents. So I knew that was a lie. I knew that was false evidence appearing real. Did I have the thought initially? I sure did. I'm like, I'm good by myself. I don't need a man. I'm good. I can do this, I can do that on my own. But listen here, God knew better than me, and I thank God for his infinite wisdom and his love for me. It's false evidence appearing real. So make sure that we do not generalize a certain experience to every situation, right? So persistent negative emotions and sometimes you can have feelings of detachment. And I often hear this from clients who feel like the world is not real. It's almost like they're walking in a fog or they're floating on a cloud and they just feel detached from the world. This is some of the symptoms of PTSD. Okay, so you just really don't feel connected. You feel like something is awry. Have you ever been there before? And maybe sometimes, hey, our children can traumatize us. It don't just have to be an abusive person or a big event. Sometimes our children can traumatize us because it's like, who are you? And where you get all that stuff from? And you can't really wrap your mind around what is going on. Everyone's trauma can be different from someone else's, right? But we have to know us. We have to know how we function and how we would like to feel. You can become whoever you want to become, but you can't do it being in denial. You have to get out of denial. All right. Another sign is hypervigilant behavior. Like you are paranoid. You are paranoid. You can't even go out of the house and enjoy yourself because you're constantly looking over your shoulder. Or if you hear something, you're instantly like, think that it's a threat. PTSD. And y'all not really talking to me, so I really have to use myself, right? So I remember after my house, well, after my divorce and my ex kept breaking in and breaking in. Well, one time I did ignore it, right? I thought I heard something and I ignored it. Okay. But the next morning, when I pulled the curtains back, I saw that, where he had tried to get into my house because the window was broken. The window was broken. So after that, I became very, very sensitive and very hyper vigilant. Like I'm never going to ignore another sound. Seriously, even sleeping like I hear stuff like in my sleep. I became very, very hyper vigilant. It couldn't even be anything. It'd be a fly flying by and just very, very aware, very sensitive, but do you know what is happening? Your amygdala is fired up and it's sending all kind of signals, and you're like constantly releasing the adrenaline. So you really have too much adrenaline is overpowering your system, and it's like wearing you out, false evidence appearing real. Now, one of the things that can help you to ease the anxiety is to really check it out. Go ahead and check it out. If you think you heard something, check it out. Nothing's there. Okay, go on with your business. But you have to help yourself, right? All right, being hyper vigilant, exaggerated startle response. You ever see anybody, you walk up to them and and you just want to say something to them. You like tap them on their shoulder. You can walk up behind them, tap them, and you get ready to tell them something, and they're like, like, oh my God. So you have the exaggerated startle response, but then you scare the other person too. Like, I was just trying to tell you something. Do you know anyone like that or have ever experienced that at all? Exaggerated startle response. You're like, okay, what's really going on? Just pass out my cards, you guys. You all have my cards, right? And then you can have problems concentrating, concentrating. Your focus is off. You just can't seem to focus. You cannot seem to concentrate. So that is some of the criteria for post-traumatic syndrome disorder. All right. So let's talk a little bit about what we need to do about it. Okay. What we need to do about it. So we're talking about fear. We're talking about PTSD. Marva Bozeman says very uneasy. Can you expound on that a little bit for me? Very uneasy. We're talking about the startle, the exaggerated startle response. Just expound a little bit for me. And thank you for your comments, you guys. How many of you have allowed fear to paralyze you? What was a situation where you allowed fear to dominate you? I just want to hear from you all to make me feel like I'm not the only one who has ever dealt with fear. Has this been, at work? Has it been when you're giving a speech? Has it been just anything where you allow fear to dominate you? So first of all, we have to accept it, right? We can't help anyone until they first accept the fact that, you know what, I am living in fear. And it doesn't have to be overall, it can be specific. I am afraid of my boss. Every time he comes around, I feel nervous. I feel anxious. Or I have a fear of speaking up for myself. I have a fear of displeasing people. I have a fear of letting people down. Some people have FOMO, FOMO, right? Is that you? You have FOMO, where you have a fear of missing out, where you feel like you got to make it to every function. You have to make it to everything because then you don't want to let people down and you want to be in the know and you want to know what's going on. What is your fear? Marva Bozeman says, nervous just because. Yeah. Yeah, I know people like that who are nervous just because, but I'm often thinking about what is going on inside of them. What's really going on inside? Because if you are overt with it, like people can see that you're nervous, you talk nervous, and you're doing this and like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, how are you? No, going on the inside of you? Do you have unresolved issues? You kind of have to tell somebody, reach out for help. Seriously, do you not want to be better? You can live a peaceful and calm life. Yes, you can. I was that girl who lived in fear. I'm telling y'all. And you can read it in my book, Secret Pain, how I walked around my own house with a Bible in one hand and a gun in the other. Oh, yes, I did. Ain't ashamed to admit it, because I'm like, it's going to be me or it's going to be him, but I ain't going down without a fight. Yep, First Lady. I wasn't in, Lord no, and I sure wasn't where I am now, but I don't even know if I would handle it different now. When it's between you and another person, you're going to do what you know to do. Can I get an amen? Seriously, So, yeah, I was that girl where I had to sleep on the couch so that I can be aware of what's going on all around me, and then try to get up and go to work and function the next day. Ida Trout says, I have fear of high places. Yeah. Yeah, and it makes sense. I hear stories all the time of different types of fears. So we have to go back to, if I have a fear of high places, why is that? Did something actually happen before? Did you actually experience something before? And if the answer is no, then it goes back to the acronym, right? False evidence appearing real. I have no evidence that I will fall. Nothing has ever happened. So then we have to challenge, I call it the ant, right? The ANT, the ants, automatic negative thoughts. Automatic negative thoughts. We know everything starts with the thought. So why do I have a fear of heights? Or perhaps the PTSD from somebody else's story, what happened to them. But yet again, you have no evidence that it happened to you, right? So now we want to talk about the prolonged exposure. So perhaps you don't have to go up on the highest mountain starting off, but maybe you can subject yourself to an elevated place and just breathe and just take it all in. And then the next time, maybe increase the level. Just trying to help ourselves to become who we shall become. Mary Stevenson says, amen, you made it out. Ha ha, I made it out all right. Yes, I did. Thank you, Father. I wasn't in it alone, although I felt alone. Ah, man, that'll preach. I wasn't in it alone, although I felt alone in it, right? But we thank God that I did make it out. I made it out all right and in my right mind. So my pain pushed me to pursue my passion, and my passion is helping other people. So he thought he was doing something to me, but really, he was doing something for me. Ooh, but that's what your fear will do for you. Your fear will actually empower you if you're able to face it and to overcome it. Ida Trout says, praise God, and I'm so proud of you. I didn't do it alone. I had you and other ones praying for me, and I had a host of angels all around me, and then he could only do as much as God allowed him to. So good looking out, God. All right. So first of all, we must accept that we feel helpless. That's what fear is. That's what fear is. It causes us to feel helpless. Yeah. And we know that we're not. So we have to accept it. Like Ida Trout said, I have a fear of high places. She has accepted it. And it's okay to feel it. I'm not saying that I want you to negate how you feel, because your feelings are true to you, although it's based on a false fact. or false evidence. So I want you to feel, because I want you to feel what fear is doing to you. Yeah, Marva Bozeman says no control. Right. I want you to feel what fear is doing to you. That feeling of anxiety, that feeling of being out of control, that feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. I want you to feel it, because if you can feel it, this should encourage you to do something about it, not live with it, but to do something about it. Challenge yourself to do something different. But I also want you to look at the real evidence. Okay, so let's use Idra Trout's comment about she has a fear of high places, and perhaps, maybe she did know someone who fell. But what's the statistics say? One person fell and 1,000 other overcame it, walked across the bridge or whatever successfully. What was the incidents surrounding the person that fell? Were they goofing off? Did they stand up on the fence and shouldn't? I don't know. So I really need for us to look at the evidence. What's the worst thing that can happen to me if I get up and talk in front of people? What's the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst thing? What's the worst thing that can happen if I actually stand up for myself? Speak up for myself. What's the worst thing that can happen if I don't make an event? What's the worst thing that can happen if I tell someone no? What's the worst thing that I need us to look at the evidence? Remember my mantra: because you think a thought does not mean your thought is right. Because you think a thought does not mean that that thought is right. Our thoughts are rooted in past experiences, and we have a plethora of experiences that will speak to that thought and say, yeah, don't do that. It'll talk you out of it. Don't do it. But then we have the ability to become whoever we want to become. So now we have to utilize thoughts that are conducive for that person, for to become that better version of ourselves. Challenge yourselves. It's a challenge for me today, because I'm used to being here with my Boaz. I'm used to being here with the Honorable Bishop Marvin C. Bozeman. I don't like getting on here talking for a whole hour by myself. And I do it all day, every day with clients, 50-minute sessions or whatever. But to get this is a whole different platform. I could have easily called off today. I'm like, no, the people need to hear from you, right? Challenge yourself. I always like to say that I'm in the process of becoming who I shall become. By the way, you guys, make sure you're hitting the share button. Can I count to 3? And then you all just hit the share button. Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Hit the share, 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 share. All right. And thank you all for continuing to comment. So something else that we can do to overcome is to change your environment. To overcome fear, get out and get some fresh air. Some clients have a fear of going outside, and we call this agoraphobia. So if you're agoraphobic, or you get so comfortable, even with COVID, the pandemic, we've gotten used to being in the house, and we have a fear of going outside and going to the grocery stores and all of that. Change your environment. So even if I talked about baby steps at first, right? Go sit outside on your patio. Take in the environment. take in the natural air, take in the vitamin D that God provides for us, or just walk around the block, but challenge your thoughts. Remember, fear is false evidence appearing real. So, is there any evidence to support my thought? And if it's not, just say to yourself, I got to let this go. I got to let it go because it's not conducive for me. And the main thing is that we face our fears. The only way to get over your fear is to face your fear. So, whatever your fear is, and maybe some of you didn't feel comfortable stating what your fear is, but whatever your fear is, you must face your fear. Maybe it's a conversation. You're afraid of having a conversation. Maybe it's a conversation you just need to have with a good friend, with your spouse, with your child, with the boss. Maybe it's a conversation that you're afraid of having. The only way to get over it is to face it. Maybe you have a fear of failure. You will always fail unless you face the fear of failing. It will always empower you. Failure will always have the upper hand. You know, when I was in my abusive former marriage, as long as I gave in to him, as long as I was intimidated by him, as long as whenever he came around and I was like ducking and doing all this, that empowered him. But the day I stood it to him and I'm like, oh, come on with it. Give me your best shot. What you got today? Because I can't take it anymore. Somebody gonna die today. It's gonna be me or it's gonna be you, but at least I'll be at peace. He couldn't believe it. He could not believe it. Like, who are you and what have you done with my wife? But the day that I stood up to him and I faced my fear is the last day we had a physical altercation. How about that one? So what I'm saying, I'm not telling everybody to do that because you know who you have. But what I am saying is that when you face your fears, you take away its power. Maybe God is calling you into ministry. Maybe your purpose is to write a book or to start a workshop or to create whatever. But you have a fear of failure, so you give into it. So therefore you are failing. It's kind of like an oxymoron, right? So, but you have courage within you. You were built with that courage. So you have to go inside of yourself to make a withdrawal. So you want to withdraw courage from that inner reservoir and face fear. All right. So we have to, you cannot get over it unless you face it. Let's face it. All right. And again, I already talked about the prolonged exposure. Expose yourself to it. Start writing. Start the conversation that you're afraid of having. Figure it out. If you got to write it down, if that's how you have to converse, write it down. Do something. The worst thing to do is nothing. All right. Did y'all hit the share button yet? And like, I need some likes. Like. If you all like the content and if you all feel like this is helping someone, give me some love. What's up? Give me some love. I'm giving you all love. I love you all. That's why I do what I do. This is like a pro bono service, right? This is free therapy. I'm just here to help. I'm sent to this planet to help people. And that's what I'm doing. So hopefully someone will grab hold of this information and allow it to empower your life. You do not have to remain the same. That is a choice. You cannot grow in status quo. You just cannot do it. So fear will definitely impede the progress of your goals, right? Fear will impede the progress of your goals. Are there any witnesses out there? How you allowed fear to cause you to procrastinate? Come on, y'all, where y'all at? And I know this is real talk. And like I said, I talk to people day in and day out, but there's silence of the lambs on here today, other than a few of you. Seriously, have you allowed fear to cause you to procrastinate? Yes, Marva Bozeman says some folks are fearful of expressing. Yeah, that's so true. But there's the false evidence, because why? When we live in a world where everybody is expressing good, bad, and the ugly, they don't care. They're just, hey, they call it being true. I'm being true to myself and talking about whatever, whether if it's true or not. People are just expressive people. Why not you, though? You can be tactful. There's a way to say whatever it is that you want to say. That's your right. Your voice is your power. We don't have to be rude. We don't have to be indignant, but we can express how we feel. And it's okay. Challenge yourself to do that. So fear will definitely impede your progress. It will cause you to have low self-esteem. It'll cause you to have inner conflict, because you want to speak up for yourself. You have something to say, but you don't. You won't. So your inner voice is saying, good and well, you got something to say. I'm going to need you to speak up. And then there's shame when you don't. So now you're inferior because everybody else they're banging out their books. They're putting on some hot events. They're doing their thing. And then you have the ideas, you have the creativity, but what you doing with it? Nothing, because you're scared, because you're afraid, because you let fear dominate you and control you. You got to get out of that box. You got to kick the lid off the box and you got to come up swinging. Seriously. We all have fear, but it's a matter of what are we doing with the fear? Are you an overcomer? Are you a victor, or are you a victim to fear? Be honest with yourself, right? Because it can cause you to have low self-esteem, because now you do not believe in your own capacity. You feel like you don't have the capacity to perform. You don't have the capacity to do a good job. And really, you do. False evidence appearing real. You have what it takes to do whatever God has called you to do. Why would he call you if he didn't believe in you? Marva Bozeman says fear limits you in your living because you let it take control. And fear is not your friend. Fear is not your friend. So I believe it's 2 Timothy 1:7. God has not given us the spirit of fear. So if God did not give us the spirit of fear, where does that come from? It's a good question. Where does it come from? And if it comes from that source, why are you so comfortable with it? Why even accept it? You accept something from the enemy, really? And you just coddle it and you befriend it and you let it have its way? Come on. Come on. God didn't give us that spirit of fear, because God knows that that spirit will paralyze you in your thought processes and in your actions. The cost of fear, it'll rob you. You can't even give God full glory because you're not functioning in your purpose, because you allow fear to rob you. The cost of fear is everything. He's taken away your courage, your confidence, your self-esteem, all of that, your wealth, because your purpose will gain you your wealth, right? Ooh, yeah. It'll cause health issues, cardiovascular diseases. You got your heart racing, heart palpitations, your heart working faster than it should on a daily basis because of fear. And you want to talk about high blood pressure? Yeah, yeah. It'll disrupt your digestive system, keep you running to the bathroom, diarrhea and frequent urination because of fear, worry, and anxiety. Hmm. Yeah. The cost of fear. Don't let it overtake you and overcome you, because it'll make you be stuck. Cancer. Ooh, man. Because we're in every system from our brain to our gut to our liver to our cardiovascular system, to the respiratory system. Every system that we have within us is interconnected. So don't think that because one thing is awry that it's not going to affect something on this side. It's all interconnected, and these systems and your cellular system, they communicate. They communicate with each other. They tell the story, and they relay information to each other. So it's going to begin to function according to what you have going on here. If you're living in fear and it's sending the signal to the amygdala is sending the signal to the hippocampus sending the signal to the pituitary gland, and now the pituitary gland is like sending signals to release the adrenaline and to release the cortisol. It's a vicious cycle. Come on, y'all, we can live better. We can be healthier. We can live longer. We can be in a right frame of mind. We can be okay. But listen, the power is in your hands. It's not in anybody else's hands. You received this information today. So the question is, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with this information? We know that it's all about WORK. You got to put the work in. It's not going to come easy. You're talking about challenging yourself. Yeah. But I want you to adopt this mantra that I am becoming who I shall become. I am becoming who I shall become, knowing that we have work to do in the present, right? We all do. I challenged myself down here today, although I'm having withdrawal symptoms from Bishop, because you all know that he will be on here clowning a little bit. He'll speak the truth, but he got that sense of humor automatically. You know what I mean? So I miss him immensely. But sometimes you got to stand alone. Sometimes you have to stand alone, but you have to know that you're going to be okay. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. God has given us all the capacity and the efficacy to do whatever He has called us to do, whatever it is. So we don't want fear to dominate us, because fear doesn't have to. We want to use fear for what fear is for. Fear can be a great thing because, again, it gives us awareness. It heightens our senses that there is fear in the area. If somebody's shooting off guns, of course, with fear going to overcome us. So it's going to tell us to get up out of Dodge. It's going to heighten our sense of awareness and let us know that we are in danger. But then that unreasonable fear, don't embrace that. We got to fight that. Why allow that to be connected? So if you're having, the criteria or the symptoms that I talked about of PTSD, you have ruminating thoughts, they're intrusive. You don't welcome them, but they come on in anyway. Or you're having recurrent dreams that wake you up out of your sleep. You're having the panic attacks. You're having avoidant behavior. Like I said before, reach out for help. And you can call Healthy Emotes Counseling Services, 614-669-5115. Are there any comments or questions that you all have out there? You can put those in the comment section. Any questions or any comments at all. The power is in your hands to navigate this world. We have plenty of what's the word I'm looking for? Reasons why we all could be suffering from PTSD, right? Someone talked about being Black. We already know, that is so true. Driving down the street, being pulled over, we see that still over and over again. The abuse, the death, the killings of our Black people for no reason at all. We can't even go to the grocery store without being ran down, having to prove the receipt in our hands. But that's, after getting stunned. I don't know if you all saw that or not. But we don't want to live in fear. We don't want to cause that to make us stop living. We still want to live, but I want us to challenge the fear. Make sure you all do the square breathing. That's going to help you every day, square breathing. So you inhale for 4, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, relax for 4. Y'all got it? Do that several times a day to reduce and manage your anxiety. Yep. I love you all immensely. Thank you for coming to Talk Therapy Live today and for chiming in. I love you all. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Create a wonderful day.